This is your host again, Detangling with the Glam Life, where I'll be providing complete beauty tips, techniques, and testimonials to reveal the glam in you. If you are new to this channel, please click that red subscribe button below. And once again, thank you to all my returning viewers, subscribers, as well as followers. Back here with another hair video, and this one is going to be about how to eliminate those fairy knots, aka also known as single strand knots. Now, single strand knots are pretty much common in the natural hair community, and they're pretty much those knots that happen on the ends of your hair. Now, if your hair is normally coily, kinky, curly, some form of kink, or some form of your hair not being straight, you're going to get a single strand knot. Now, this video is just going to be giving you at least 10 tips on how to eliminate and in some cases diminish the knots altogether. So without further ado, please stay tuned. Now, tip number one with eliminating these single strand knots, aka also known as fairy knots, I'm going to be going single strand knots and fairy knots. The first thing is to get regular trims. Your hair will love it. The ends of your hair are going to come fray over time, so getting those regular trims will help keep those ends smooth, which will in turn eliminate those fairy knots. Now, as those ends become old and fray, they become jagged and they start to get all over the place, find other neighboring hairs, and when those neighboring hairs get together, they form a little knot. Now, when that happens, in most cases, you're going to have to cut out the single strand knot, because actually going in and trying to take out that knot is just, to me, going to cause more of a tangled mess, more of a frustration, where you're just going to end up pulling the whole strand of hair out after you done spent like 5-10 minutes or so trying to get it out. So if a single strand knot occurs on the end, or if you have them throughout your hair, a regular trim may be an indicator that you need to do something so the problem will not get out of hand. Your hair will love it and will also ease the frustration, and it will save you some time. Tip number 2, detangle your hair fully, especially at the ends. Detangling is something that must be done in the natural hair community. It's something that we all don't do on a daily basis, and that can cause fairy knots as a result. Being that we don't want to manipulate our hair on a daily basis, being natural, you're going to have shed hair to come. Again, those shed hairs find neighboring hairs, which in turn knots will form. So I recommend when you do detangle your hair fully, especially at the ends, get you an amazing conditioner with some slip, work through those ends. Any shed hair that comes out, take it off your hands, discard of it, then go back to detangling, so you won't again cause more knots, because the shed hair gets tangled in to neighboring hairs. So you all see kind of like a denominator. Single strand knots come from either shed hair or neighboring hairs getting in and intertwining with one another. They mate each other and a knot is formed. We're trying to eliminate it. So making sure the hair is cut and making sure the hair is detangled fully is one way to help diminish and in some cases eliminate the single strand knot. Tip number 3, protect your ends. Protect your ends. And a way of protecting your ends is doing a form of protective styling. Now, this is a tip that I do not follow. I happen to wear my hair like this on a regular basis. Me wearing hairstyles requiring braids, twists, hair pulled back, that actually causes more damage to my hair, causing it to break, because my hair is already very soft, very fragile. So I know that will not work for me. But if a protective style will work for you, make it your option. If your hair can tolerate braids, make that an option. That means for the next 6 to 8 weeks, or however long you choose to leave that protective style in, your ends are tucked away. All thing you have to do at that particular point is just oil the scalp and keep whatever parts of your hair that may be showing oil, and in return you get lots of hair growth, and in turn you eliminate the single strand knot. So if your hair can tolerate the protective style, do the protective style. Now, also too, while your hair is out, you also want to make sure that your ends are being tucked away. Making sure your ends are tucked away from from garments such as coats, scarves, even hats, even collars, in some cases jewelry. The hair can get tangled in and a knot can form. Now for me, if I wear like a sweater collar, I make sure that I have like a piece of satin or something on the back of the collar, so when my hair moves, the hair is just pretty much gliding along that satin, because I know frizz in turn will become a problem, which will cause those neighboring hairs to get together and then a knot will form. Which also leads me to tip number 4. Properly moisturizing and sealing the hair and sealing in the moisture can decrease the single strand knots. Keeping your hair, your ends hydrated leaves the hair to be more soft and manageable. The more dry your hair, the more unmanageable it becomes, the more frizz happens, the hair shaft splits, neighboring hairs find a mate, they tangle together and they knot. So properly moisturizing and sealing in the hair can decrease those knots. Keeping the ends hydrated, the hair will be soft and manageable. This will allow the hair to freely do what it needs to do. Again, preventing the hair from going into neighboring hairs, causing those knots and tangles. Tip number 5, consider wearing more stretch styles. For example, if your hair, like mine, is curly, which is going to form a string strand knot because it's curly in nature, consider more of a straighter style. Now, I don't too much recommend this because, again, that's putting heat on your hair, which leads back to tip number 1, possibly getting split ends, which can cause more single strand knots when you do decide to go back, let's say natural, whenever you decide not to wear the blowout or the press out. But again, it can help eliminate it because once the hair is straight, knots do not tend to form. Now, you can go back to the protective style method and just put like a sew-in where the hair is straighter, where you don't have to worry about your natural hair being exposed and those ends meeting neighboring hairs and for knots to form. So a protective style or wearing your hair in a much straighter style can be something to consider and to eliminate, in some cases to diminish this the very knot altogether. Tip number 6, which leads me back to tip number 4 on properly moisturizing. You also want to properly seal in the moisture by using a hair grease or a hair oil. Now, I put an emphasis on grease because I happen to love hair grease. If you follow my channel for quite some time, I love hair greases. Hair greases have been a part of my natural hair routine. I'm happy that I've incorporated them back in my routine and my hair has thrived tremendously. Normally when I go to bed at night, and you've all seen my videos where I've gotten unready, I pretty much take my hair, apply some grease at the end, working in, and as I'm working it in, shed hair begins to come out. As the shed hair comes out and gets on my hands, I remove that shed hair and just continue to work, and that lubrication from that grease gets all over my strands. My hair loves it. The knots are not forming, the knots are completely diminished. Now, if you're not a hair grease lover, try some oils like castor oil, coconut oil, olive oil, anything to get on those ends to lubricate it. Your hair will love it. Tip number 7, try some reconstructing conditioners such as protein treatments. Sometimes when the hair is weak and fragile, knots can form. So sometimes you need to reconstruct that hair shaft by incorporating some reconstructing conditioners in your hair routine. Now, I happen to be a little bit protein sensitive, so I don't use protein treatments as often. But if you're not as protein sensitive and you notice that those single strand knots are becoming an issue, try strengthening that hair shaft, and maybe those strands will not be as susceptible to being weak and frail, which can cause knots to form. Tip number 8, make sure you protect your hair when going to bed. Again, I cannot stress this enough. A lot of naturals do what they call the pineappling method, which they pull all their hair up to the top, put a scarf on it, and they pretty much let their curls come out through the top of the scarf. My hair cannot tolerate it. Then when I wake up, because I am a wild sleeper, the next day the scarf may not be on my head, or if it is, my hair is matted. I don't know, it does not work for me. But if it works for you, I do suggest that you continue that method and put some oil or some grease on the ends to where those ends are lubricated to prevent some form of single strand knot. Now for me, I pretty much twist my hair every single night prior to me going to bed. I redo it by doing the hair grease. I oil the scalp, oil the ends of my hair, work my way up. If my hair gets a little bit dry, I get some conditioner, put it along that hair shaft, twist it up. The next day when I take my hair out, ends are completely moisturized, ends are soft, ends are manageable, which is wonderful because I'm able to wear my hair fully out like this from day to day without getting the knots at all. Tip number 9, we're almost done. Try to detangle your hair prior to shampooing. This is another tip that has helped my hair out tremendously when eliminating the single strand knots. When you wash your hair, any shed hair that is in your hair is going to come out when you wash your hair fully. And if you're not careful, that shed hair that is coming out into the wash will get tangled onto the hairs that is left, which causes more fairy knots. So normally what I do prior to washing, I pre-poo my hair. I use either olive oil, castor oil, coconut oil, or I even use some form of conditioner. Dry to tangle my hair, get as much shed hair out as possible, and then when I go wash my hair loves it. It causes less havoc, it causes less friction, and it saves more time and frustration because I'm not dealing with shed hair tangling into my hair, which in turn can cause the single strand knots. And tip number 10, this also applies with, all a part about the wash routine. Wash your hair in a downward motion. Now, I wash my hair in the shower. So when I'm in the shower, I just pretty much let my hair hit the shower head and I wash my hair in a downward motion. Pretty much having my hair like this in an upward motion, pulling all your hair up, can create a recipe for disaster for a single strand knots. So that tip right there has also helped tremendously, which is another reason why I cannot do the pineapple method, because I'm pulling all my hair up as I'm doing it, trying to make sure all the ends and stuff are smooth. I'm actually tangling the coils in because, as you all see, natural hair is coily. It's gonna tangle naturally in its state. It's naturally going to do it. So for me, keeping my hair in a laid down state while I'm washing it, even when I'm also maintaining it at night, has helped my hair tremendously and thrive as a result. So these are just the basic tips right here to help some ways to prevent and eliminate the single strand knot. I don't think there is going to be never a silver lining to get rid of it altogether. But what are some of your tips, and what are some of the things that you would suggest to eliminate the single strand knot? Comment below. Thank you for your time, G.L.A.Ms. Be blessed and be glamorous.